Vielen Dank, Frau Bundeskanzlerin. Die wahren Freunde Kanadas erkennt man daran, dass sie uns Anfang Februar besuchen kommen. Ihre vorherigen Besuche kamen im Juni.
But I think you said, yeah, now it's working.
Okay. Vos visites précédentes se sont déroulées en juin 2010 et en août 2012.
Of 2012. So you can now fully appreciate the diversity of our climate.
I've been welcomed to your country on no less than 5 occasions, visits that have always been warm and worthwhile, so I hope we're able to do the same for you here. Now, you and I started representing our respective countries at international meetings some time ago at almost the same time. So we have spent a lot of time together, and I just want to say in front of everyone here, I've come to greatly value your judgment and your counsel. Vous êtes non seulement une politicienne.
You are not only a politician of exceptional talent, but also a woman of great vision, and the world greatly needs your leadership.
We have been meeting in anticipation of the upcoming G7 in Germany and Bavaria in Elmau. We discussed a broad range of international matters. In particular, we spoke of the most important objective we share, continuing to guide our respective economies during a period of global uncertainty. And we know that despite the relative success of both Germany and Canada over the past few years, considerable uncertainty, volatility, and risk are all around us. Nous avons analysé les récents développements.
We have analyzed the recent economic and political developments in Europe.
Issues including the dangerous situation persisting in Ukraine as a result of Russia's ongoing aggression towards that country, and the global jihadist threat, with special attention on Iraq, where German military trainers will be working with our forces as part of the international coalition dedicated to combating the so-called Islamic State. Comme vous le savez, Madame la...
As you know, Madam Chancellor, the jihadist monster spread its tentacles all the way into our parliament. In fact, it was stopped in the hallway, which is right behind us, in October, and during that tragic month, 2 innocent Canadian soldiers were killed in revolting and cowardly attacks on our soil.
Our government has recently put forward strong legislative measures to respond to the growing threat of terrorism, homegrown or foreign, which seeks to destroy everything we hold dear. Nous ne réussirons.
We will only manage to eradicate jihadist terrorism through national and international strong and united action. Lastly, Angela and I have also discussed the Canada-EU trade agreement, which promises to energize and diversify our trading relationship.
Thanks to the Canada-EU trade agreement, there will soon be a new era of even greater economic cooperation between both of our countries. Now, Angela, I want to thank you once again, as I said, for visiting us in advance of the G7 and also for this innovation of doing this tour of capitals before the meetings, and I very much look forward to seeing you in Germany. In the meantime, welcome. Bienvenue.
Ja, danke schön für...
Well, thank you very much for this very warm welcome and also for the gracious hospitality that you offer me. I gladly have come back to Canada, although it's a very brief visit. I very well remember that last time we were able to get out into the country and I saw at least a little bit of Canada and its beautiful landscape. I have unfortunately seen only too little of it. Over the past few years, I think we've been able to forge a true friendship, a very good partnership and cooperation, and we see time and again that we all have to confront the same set of issues and problems, although geographically speaking, we're fairly far apart. And at the beginning of my visit here, I reminded the Prime Minister that I was more than aware of these horrible attacks last year, and that there so many people lost their lives in these attacks, and how fragile our security is and how easily it can be disturbed. Unfortunately, in Germany too, we have had to strengthen our laws because there too our security is all but anything but certain. We have now supported, we've now taken a decision to support the Peshmerga in order to ward off the danger that IS poses to the Iraq. We also talked about a conflict that assails Canada and the European Union. Canada has a very large Ukrainian minority here in your country, and this Ukrainian minority obviously is paying very much attention to what's happening in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, is keeping a very close eye on this, and we were at one in saying that the European peaceful order, which rests on the principle of territorial integrity, has to be preserved, and there we have to show cohesion, and Canada and Germany are very closely coordinated on this and are on the same page. We talked about CETA, the trade agreement, and I must say that in view of the very weak growth rates that we have in Europe, I think CETA offers a very good opportunity to give a boost to growth, also and in particular with in our trade with Canada. Currently, there is this process of so-called legal scrubbing going on. There are a few legal issues to be settled yet, but I do hope that we will make rapid progress, and Germany will encourage the European Commission to conclude this process as quickly as possible. As to the G7 presidency, we talked about the essential issues as usual during G7 presidency. Global economy is of the essence. We will have an outreach summit also with African countries, and we talked about questions related to financing of health systems. Canada, during its G7 presidency, launched a number of initiatives and is supporting us in Germany on what we're doing on climate protection and financing of this issue. We also talked about these issues here. Canada is also going to support us on another issue, namely empowerment of women that wish to set up their own business. We feel ought to be strengthened, not only in our own countries, but also in the developing countries. And here, Germany, too, would like to set up new partnerships. So these are just a few of the issues that we want to deal with during our G7 presidency, but not all of them. But we say growth obviously should loom large on the agenda, as it does during all of the G7 meetings. And the number of crises with which we have to contend with in this planet, unfortunately, is fairly large. So we have every reason not only to intensively pursue the transatlantic partnership with the United States, but certainly also with Canada. So I'm delighted to be here today.
When I raise your hand, we'll start with David Aiken from Sun News.
Prime Minister, Chancellor, good evening. Sorry, Chancellor, a domestic politics question for the Prime Minister first, if you wouldn't mind. Bit of a party matter. Prime Minister, we're wondering why you wouldn't go to bat for Eve Adams as she struggled to find a riding to run in. And on the flip side, we understand Dimitri Soudis, who of course we all know is pretty much inseparable from you for a decade, helping you in your political success. Do you feel betrayed by the fact that he's not going to campaign against your government? And are you worried he may betray more secret information to the Liberals?
Well, look, on the first subject, I'll just say this. I think the situation's very simple. The National Council of our party is responsible for an honest, clean nomination process. It informed MP Adams some 10 days ago that she could not be a candidate for the party for reasons that I think everybody understands. And that's obviously the reality of the situation, and that's the sole reason we obviously have the development we have today.
To repeat, the National Council of the party is responsible for the nomination process, a process which is democratic and clean. What we know is that MP Adams was informed that she would not be running for our party for very well-known reasons by all. This was a necessary decision, and I have no other commentary on that matter, and that is, in fact, the only reason for the developments which happened today.
Andreas Rinke from Reuters. A question addressed to both of you on an issue that the Prime Minister mentioned just now, uncertainties, for example, Greece. How concerned are you that with Greece there may well be a renewed debate over a country leaving the euro area, and will this have an impact on growth in Europe but also in Canada? Well, first of all, the Greek government has been in office for only a few days. We're waiting for concrete proposals by the Greek government as to their stance on the existing program. I've said it time and again, and I'd like to repeat it here again. Germany's policy is has as its goal to keep Greece in the Eurozone, and if I understand it correctly, the majority of the Greek people are also of this opinion. Our cooperation in the European Union rests on two different pillars. In a way, they're two sides of one and the same coin. On the one hand, we show solidarity, the member states of the Eurozone and the European Union, and on the other hand, the countries that are in a program have to make their own efforts, and this is going to continue to exist. The program is going to continue to exist, and next week there will be a Eurozone meeting, and we'll wait the
Manon Globinski, Radio-Canada. If I may briefly, I am not going to speak at length on the developments which have happened in Europe. There have been developments in Europe for years now. Of course, I have a great deal of trust in the judgment of Madam Chancellor in these very difficult situations. Our priority with Europe is our free trade agreement with the EU, and we are working towards the goal of implementing that agreement.
Met at any length on these debates within the European community, these various uncertainties. This has been, as you know, an ongoing situation for some years, and I have great confidence in the Chancellor's ability to bring good judgment to these situations. In the meantime, our focus with Europe, with all countries of Europe, is obviously moving forward on a trade agreement and making sure that gets put into place.
Mr. Harper,
Mr. Harper, I am presuming that Madam Chancellor discussed her initiative, which will lead to the Minsk meeting on Wednesday. Do you believe that there is reason to hope that the crisis in the Ukraine will be solved through diplomatic means? And what do you think of the possibility of offering self-defense weapons to the Ukrainian army? Obviously, I believe that everyone hopes that we can solve this matter through diplomatic channels. Unfortunately, until now, Mr. Putin has decided to use violent and military means, and that's the reality. Clearly, Ms. Merkel and Mr. Hollande and others are trying every other option to find a different resolution. As far as we are concerned, we are considering all options. We are consulting our allies. We are working with our allies. And up until now, we have provided humanitarian aid and military aid, non-lethal military aid, to Ukraine last week. We announced that Canada was uniting its efforts with the United States to support the Ukraine on a joint commission. It's a joint military cooperation group, and we are going to keep on working so as to resolve that situation as peacefully as possible. I certainly would like to see Mr. Putin demonstrate the same willingness.
You know, we all hope that this situation will be resolved by diplomatic means. I obviously admire the efforts the Chancellor, President Hollande, and others are making to try and do that. Unfortunately, to this point in time, as you know, Mr. Putin has rejected diplomatic means. He seeks to move his agenda forward through military violence. which is unfortunate. We have provided a whole range of aid to our friends in Ukraine, humanitarian aid, financial aid, non-lethal military aid. Last week I announced that Canada is participating with Ukraine and the United States in a joint military commission where we seek to cooperate, but obviously, we'll look at all options, but obviously we will proceed extremely cautiously in partnership and collaboration with all of our allies.
I think that it is most important in dealing with this violation of territorial integrity of Ukraine through Russia. We have been able so far to work very well together in our transatlantic partnership, and it's going to continue. I said this today already during my visit to the United States. I hope that we shall be able to solve this conflict by diplomatic means, because I think by military means it cannot be solved. Diplomatic efforts have been reinforced due to the trip of the French president and myself and to Kiev and Moscow. We will see over the next few days whether there will be progress. That is anything but certain. If that is not the case, then although we are of different opinions, I already gave my opinion on lethal weapons or not, we have to take a moment and think how we are going to proceed. We've always been consistent in pursuing sanctions together, and I think we're going to coordinate our future steps. But now we should put all our efforts into the question, can we find a diplomatic solution? And I'm very grateful that both the American President and the Canadian Prime Minister support us in this endeavor and in these efforts.
I would simply like to add that notwithstanding Mr. Putin's methods, Canada's position is well known, and as with Germany, we recognize the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and we will never recognize an illegal occupation of that country by Russia.
Important to underscore this basic principle. We both support, obviously, strongly the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and our position is clear that we will never, notwithstanding, no matter how long it takes, notwithstanding what methods are used, Canada will never accept the illegal occupation of Ukrainian territory by Russia.
Die letzte Frage von Stefan Detjen, Deutschlandradio.
Last question from Stefan Detjen from Deutschlandradio. My question relates to the free trade agreement, Prime Minister. The deputy of the Chancellor and Federal Minister of Economics last year announced that Germany was going to throw its weight around renegotiating certain parts of the trade agreement, mostly about investor-state dispute settlement and so on. And do you see opportunities and chances for changing some parts of that agreement? And Madam Chancellor, under which preconditions would this agreement have the content and the shape that would allow you to submit it to the German Bundestag to take a vote on this? Well, since the coalition was addressed, we are right now in a certain status, in a certain stage of the negotiations. There's this so-called legal scrubbing going on. Possibilities of change, of amending it, then limited. I am in close contact with my coalition partner, Sigmar Gabriel, the Minister of Economics, and we are going to talk about certain ideas, but the possibilities of change also on this investor-state dispute settlement are limited, and we will come to a conclusion of this process. And as I said, I see great advantages for us in Europe, and particularly for the exporting nation that Germany is.
As Angela said, there's an ongoing process of legal scrubbing, but I think it's been clear at every step. Both of our governments, both leaders have been committed to finding an agreement, getting an agreement, and seeing it through from the beginning, and I think we will continue to work forward with that in mind. Look, I think it's very important at this point in the global economy, and particularly given all the uncertainties and difficulties in the developed world, that Canada and Europe not only have concluded this agreement, but show every ability to move it forward. This is the kind of positive news that the world needs to see, and the kind of commitment to trade they need to see from major Western countries. Je vais le répéter, il y a un processus.
I will repeat this. There is a process which is ongoing, as the Chancellor just mentioned. But I have to say that from the start, Germany and Canada, our two countries, are committed to implementing this agreement, to moving it forward at every stage, and we will continue to do so. For me, it is an important sign, an important message to send to the world that we develop these things by working together, and this is important for the world economy.
Let me just add that I start from the assumption that it's going to be a mixed agreement, and I think it's much better that we have the ratification in the individual parliaments because we don't want to avoid this discussion, this debate.
Merci.